This is Joe Shanahan here from VoIP Supply, hosting this webinar along with Grandstream, and Ernesto Calderón will be hopping on here momentarily to walk you through the UCM products. A little bit about VoIP Supply. We were founded in 2002, so we've been here since the early days of VoIP becoming more mainstream. We have, roughly 125,000 customers or so in and around the world out of our Buffalo, New York office. Been around since the early days and plan on being here for many more. And there's our contact information there from up here in Amherst outside Buffalo, New York. We really cut our teeth in the hardware business and, currently covering, we have about 60 manufacturers that we will supply, over 16,000 products. Our experts here, we've got several people that have been in the industry, 10 years, 15 years on both the support and the sales side. So a lot of people that have been involved with VoIP since the early days. We do have our CloudSpan marketplace you may have heard of. That's where we have our stable of service providers that we can offer to our customers as both end users and resellers. But we have a stable of different providers, to meet the different needs out there of our customers. Another prong of what we do is our fulfillment services, which we do for many of the major service providers. We'll do all of their provisioning and fulfillment, taking in their orders through our API, provisioning them up, testing them, making test calls, sending the phones right out to the customer so the service provider never has to. And lastly, our refresh and our reclaim program, where we will buy back used equipment from customers that are looking to upgrade. We'll buy their old equipment, and then we will send that through our refresh program where it is refurbished and sold again like new. Reseller program again, we'll introduce you to our vendors and our different service providers that we work with. Our resellers have then access to all of the marketing and quoting tools that they're needed. And of course, then at the end of it all, you get to cash a nice commission check. So there are no quotas, no commitment levels on that, so we don't hold you over the fire. We do help you try to grow your sales, but like we said, there are no quotas or no commitment levels as far as getting your commissions. The more you sell, the more you make as far as the commissions and how those will grow. If you want to take my contact information there, I think it should be on the next slide here. Again, Joe Shanahan. You'll see my direct line there, 531-4316. And as well as my email, jshanahan@voipsupply.com. Any questions as far as the partner program, the reseller program, or any of the other programs that we have, please reach out. Be glad to work for you and get together with you on any of those needs. So I'll hand it over to Ernesto now, Ernesto Calderón from Grandstream, and he is going to take us through UCM products. And if there are any questions, you can send it through on the Q&A button, and we'll get to the end of at the end of the presentation, we'll get to those questions. Ernesto, it's all yours.
All right. Thank you very much, Joe. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone, depending where you are. My name is Ernesto Calderón, broadcasting live from Boston, Massachusetts, Grandstream headquarters. Today, I'm going to be presenting a webinar about the IP PBX UCM 6200 series, including a little bit about the 6510, our PRI T1 E1 PBX. Very similar. All these two models are basically the same. They support the same call features. But before that, let me show you a little bit about the Grandstream offering. As of today, we have IP video phones with video, without video, targeting different type of market shares, enterprise, SMBs, low end, whatever you want to call it. Also, we have deck phones. It comes with a DP720, which is a base, and 5 handset that you can pair into the base. IP PBXs, as I mentioned before, that we're going to be talking a lot today. And we also cover the IP surveillance. We make IP cameras in and outdoors, full HD or HD only, and of course NVRs, software and hardware. At the same time, we also are into the ATAs market. We make ATAs from 1 port all the way up to 48 ports. So FXS, 1 FXS, 2 FXS, 4, 8, and you name it, up to 48 ports. The high density ATS or gateways is a good option for hospitality, call centers, for example. Um, and last but not least, the network product. So Grandstream now it's offering APs and router. So check our website for more information about any of the products that you see here. But obviously today we're going to be talking about the UCM 6200 series. It's an appliance that comes in two different models, small appliance and a large appliance. The small appliance comes with 2 and 4 FXO ports, and the large appliance, which is a rack mountable unit, comes with 8 FXO ports. As Joe mentioned before, if you have any questions, please feel free to submit it through the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen. Then at the end of my presentation, we're going to go over the Q&A, and we're going to do our best to answer all of your questions. Back to the UCM. All of them, they come with 2 FXS ports as well, in case you want to connect a analog phone, let's say a fax machine or just a regular analog phone, you can do that. And they can be used with a lifeline capability, meaning that if the UCM is out of power, then these FXS ports are going to be bridged automatically to the FXO ports, so people can still make outbound calls. Now, any of these units, the 6200 series, they can handle up to 100 concurrent calls and up to 32 conference attendees. So I'm going to explain a little more about that later. Also, each of these units, they can hold up to 800 SIP extensions, and you can configure up to 50 SIP trunk accounts. They all come with a dual gigabit network port integrated with PoE, USB, and SD port. So the USB and SD can be used to store storage. For example, your call recordings, your voice recording, voice messages, your backups can be also stored up to the external media using the USB or SD ports. Lastly, the zero config is a nice option that Grandstream developed. Basically, with a couple clicks, you can find your phones, you can assign an extension to it, and the phone get provisioned within a few seconds. So the 3 models that I just mentioned before, this is how they look like. The 6202 comes with 2 FXO ports and 2 FXS ports. This unit, by the way, supports a router built in. As you can see, it comes with a USB port and an SD card port. The 6204, obviously with same as the other model, but with 4 FXO ports. And the large model, the 6208, which is a rack mountable unit, comes with 8 FXO ports. Now, let's talk about the concurrent calls. Depending on the model, as you can see in this chart, the 6202 can hold up to 30 concurrent calls. The next model, 6204, you can have up to 45 concurrent calls. And the 6208, up to 100 concurrent calls. So remember, if this unit can have between 500 and 800 extensions or SITs or endpoints, typically, I recommend that you need to, for your customer, for example, typically it's a 20% of the SITs, it's what you need to have available for concurrent calls, okay? So if you have a deployment, let's say of 100 extensions, then typically you may need a device that can hold up to 20 concurrent calls. Obviously, these concurrent calls, most of the time are going to be using the trunks, either your analog trunks or your SIP trunks, and probably a low percentage will be using internal extension to extension calls. So keep that in mind, okay? So again, the small appliance, 6202 and 04, support up to 500 extensions, and the large one, 800 extensions. They all, as I said before, they come with a dual core 1 gigahertz processor, 1 gigabit RAM for enhanced capability and speed, and 3 different sizes as I showed you before. Now, our PBX, our IP PBXs are built or are using an open source Asterisk version 13. So to make it more compatible with any third-party phone, if you have a customer using non-Grandstream phones, by offering Grandstream PBX, they're going to be almost 100% compatible with our PBX because it's running on top of an open source, very popular PBX Asterisk. Another feature, it's a setup wizard. So as an administrator, when you log into the PBX web interface, you have a nice wizard that you can follow about 5 or 6 steps. So then you can configure the whole phone system. Some of the features that we're going to be talking today are announcement center, multiple devices, registration per account, messages, zip messages, for example, Google Calendar. The video preview support is a nice option. If you have a Grandstream video phone and a Grandstream video camera or the door camera that we announced last year, then when the video phone receives an incoming call, during the ringing time, the phone is going to display the video. So it's up to the user if he or she wants to take or answer that call or not. Fax sending, you can send the faxes via web UI portal. So as a user, you can log into your portal, you can upload your PDF file, enter the phone number, click send, and the UCM will send that fax for you. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the PRI T1 E1 PBX. It's the UCM 6510. This one obviously has a larger capability. You can have up to 2,000 zip extensions, and you can have up to 200 concurrent calls. Firmware call features are all the same across the board. So regardless of what model you have, from the 6202 all the way to the 6510, the same call features are going to be available. The same offering, call recording, for example, or any of the call features will be available for you. All right, so let's move on to the next one. I'm going to show you a little bit about the managing. So the UCM comes with a nice user-friendly web interface. From the web interface, you can reach up to, you can configure you can see the life or the health of your phone system in one shot. All right, so let me continue. So in the top left corner, for example, you can see the flash partitions availability. So in case you are saving your call recordings locally, then you know how much space you have available. Also, we have the resources usage, very good for troubleshooting. So you can see in the last 60 seconds, the CPU and the memory usage. At the bottom left, you can see your extensions and the trunks availability. So, I think it's better if I can show you the web interface in just a moment. For the zero config, this is the nice option that I told you. This is designed only to auto-detect Grandstream phones. So if you have a Grandstream solution, PBX and phone, as soon as you plug in the phones into the network, the UCM is going to auto-detect the phones. The phones are going to show up on your screen, like you can see here. Then you click on Edit, assign an extension, save it, and the phone gets provisioned. Again, you can also include or work with a third-party IP phone, but then the zero config is not an option for that. You need to do a manual configuration, meaning you create extension, copy the password, and then plug it into the third-party phone. As a PBX, obviously, this is the menu where you can configure your inbound route. From inbound route, anything that is incoming into the PBX from any of your trunk, you have a way that you can distribute the calls to many destinations. So typically incoming calls, probably you want to send it to an IVR, or maybe you want to send it to a particular extension, or even a ring group or call queue. So in other words, from this configuration menu, you have many ways or many destinations that you can send the calls to. Another nice feature of the UCM is the multiple devices per registration. So in other words, you can have one extension, your work extension. As an example, let's say that your work extension is 100. Then you need to enable an option that you can say you can have multiple registrations on that particular extension. Then you can have your work phone registered on extension 100, same as your home phone, same as your soft phone, for example, and maybe a second IP phone in the warehouse. So when extension 100 receives an incoming call, all your phones are going to be ringing at the same time. You pick up, and then the other phones are going to hang up, are going to cancel the ringing. And then when you make an outbound call from any of your phones, your caller ID information is going to remain, so people know that you are calling from extension 100. Some of the customization, I'm going to show you the web interface after this PowerPoint, so you can see exactly what I'm referring to. You can customize your call routing, as I said before. You can customize your auto attendant, IVR, call queue. You can have multiple call queues, call forwarding, music on hold. The music on hold are customizable. You can basically have a nice professional recording uploaded to the UCM, or you can even have a homemade recording by using one of your phones. You can basically upload any recording into the unit, and then you can use that as part of the music on hold, or maybe as part of a IVR message, for example. All right, how about conference? So any of the UCM models, any of the UCM model has an option of conference. So basically a conference room are available. You can have up to 6 conference rooms or bridges, and you can have up to 32 users per bridge. In a conference bridge, by the way, obviously you provide that number into your IVR, or you can provide that number to your attendees. So then when they dial into the UCM, they enter the conference number, and then they can obviously join into the conference room. Call recording is another option that is available in the UCM. As soon as you enable this option, you can turn it on an extension level, at the trunk level, call queue, for example, or ring group. You can enable these options, so when a call is going through this particular element, everything is going to be recorded. Or then you can have a per request option, meaning that by the user dialing or pressing the call record button on the Grandstream phone, then that piece of conversation will be recorded. For security, we have many options available for you. Fail to ban, if you have the PBX, by the way, connected directly to your modem, then you need to enable all these options. We highly recommend not connecting your PBX on the network border. Otherwise, we'll be involved into many SIP attacks within a couple hours or maybe days. So please do not do that. Always use a robust firewall behind the UCM, or if you want to use the UCM as your main router, make sure that you turn on all the security options available. Fail to ban is one of the one that I personally recommend. You can use HTTPS. You need to change the port number. You can change the SIP port number 5060 to something else. And there are many other security options that you need to enable. Call details records. So CDRs are available through the web interface. You can see your calls records. You can download them into a CSV format. So then you can upload it into a third-party reporting tool, for example. You can monitor callings habits per user. there's a nice statistics that it can show you in a nice graphical way the traffic or the amount of calls that are going through a particular element. For example, a trunk, an extension, inbound or outbound calls. You can see that in a nice statistics graphic. For email forwarding, so the UCM has an option that automatically it's basically email ready. So by using an MTA protocol, the UCM can send out emails out of the box. And the type of email that the UCM will be sending are faxes, for example, or voice messages. When you configure an extension, besides assigning the name and last name of the user, you need to also include his or her email address. So when there's a voicemail into that extension or a fax into that extension, the UCM will convert it into PDF or WAV format and send it to that email. If you don't want to use the default MTA protocol for sending emails, you can always change that and configure your client or server email information. For system backup, there are many ways to do a backup. Obviously, the typical one is by doing a manual backup. Just press the button and the backup can be stored in many different destinations. Locally, for example, on the same UCM flash, or maybe in one of the external medias, SD or USB card. And lastly, we added an option that you can push the backups to a network server by using TFTP. And lately, we added an option that you can create a schedule. You can configure it once and then forget about it. As the administrator, you configure it that the UCM push the backups to your FTP server, let's say once a week or once a month. And then all you need to do is just make sure that the backup server has available space. For video calling, UCM is ready for video. Grandstream video phones, Grandstream door access controller, anything that supports video by using the typical protocol H264, it's automatically supported on the UCM. For soft phones, by the way, Grandstream has available a free soft phone called Grandstream Wave. So please check your Google Store or iOS or iPhone application store so you can download a free version of Grandstream Wave. The cell phone supports video and high compressed codecs like G729. However, the PBX is not only compatible with Grandstream cell phones, but with any third-party cell phone, like for example, Bria, Zoiper, and many others. So this is a summary of the call features supported on our PBX. We kind of group them into basic or advanced features. So from call forwarding, caller ID, voicemail, up to more advanced, like the zero config, LDAP server, so then you can manage your phone books, TLS for security, etc. The recording server, by the way, if you decide to store the call recordings locally, then we can guarantee about 500,000 minutes into the unit. If you need more space, always send the recordings to the USB where you can have, and by the way, the UCMs, they all come with a 2 gigs flash size. If you need more space, then you can include a USB stick with 32, 64 gigs. But what we highly recommend is utilize, if you need more space, using a NAS server. A NAS server using USB port. That way you can gain terabytes of space. For fax server, as I mentioned before, all the UCM, they come with 2 FXS ports. However, you can connect the fax machine also into an ATA in a different location of the UCM. We support T38 protocol, which handles fax more reliable. The faxes can be converted into PDF file. And they also, the faxes can be sent directly from the web interface. Also, conference servers, as I mentioned before, depending on the model, these each UCM support from 3 to 6 conference bridges. And then you can have within these 3 bridges or 6 bridges, you can have between 25 and 32 participants. As an asterisk, open source PBX obviously is a PBX friendly for third-party cell phones or IP phones. So yes, the UCM is compatible with any vendor of hardware, IP phones, or even cell phones. A little bit more about security. So we support LLDP, TLS and SRTP in case you want to secure the whole phone call or the voice conversation. TLS is to secure the signaling leg, and SRTP is to encrypt the media. All the UCM, they come with an embedded firewall with static defense and dynamic defense. So in that way, you can configure your own firewall rules. Blacklist and whitelist is also available. And real-time asterisk security monitoring. If you decide to use a T1 PBX, the UCM 6510, then we have available, we launched this one not too long ago. It is the HA100. This is a high availability unit that typically the typical deployment consists of 2 UCM 6510 and obviously 1 HA100. The full solution includes, to make available or to fill over all your FXO trunks, FXS, T1 PRI, and 1 LAN ports. Automatically, the data synchronization happens between both UCMs. Automatically, every few seconds, they are connecting to each other to synchronize the data. So this is a better example. At the bottom, you have 2 UCM 6510 that they will be connected with a physical cable, serial port cable, to connect or to synchronize the data. These 2 units are then connected to the HA100. This one is basically monitoring the master. So when the master PBX is not available, the HA will switch over or fail over all the trunks to the following UCM, which we call it slave UCM. All right, so before getting to the questions, I'm going to pop up my browser, and I just want to show you a little more about the web interface. This is what I mentioned before. This is the dashboard where you can see the space utilization of your storage, of your local storage. If you ever have a USB connected to it or an SD card, you can see that also. I don't have anything connected at the moment. Obviously, for the resources, you can see the last 60 seconds activity. So this one looks a healthy unit with about 5% of CPU and 12% of memory usage. Then down at the bottom, you can see your PBX status, meaning the system time, the active call, how many calls are active at the moment, how many extensions are registered from 2 out of 6 in this case, how many conference rooms are available, call queues, parking lots, etc. Then on the next section, you have the interface status, where you can see if you have a USB connected to it, if you have an SD card, LAN port WAN, and if the LAN is sending PoE. Remember, the small appliances, they are PoE supported, meaning that you can power this unit by connecting it to your PoE switch. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the trunks status, how many trunks you have, what's the name of the trunks. You can see by colors if they are available, not available, or in use. If you ever want to see how many calls are active, there's a menu for that you can basically see in a graphical way who's calling whom if it's an in or outbound call, what trunk the call is going through, how much time the call is being up to, and most important, you can barge into that call or you can hang up that particular call. Next one, by the way, let me remind you that if you have any questions, please submit your questions through the Q&A. You can see the Q big button at the bottom right corner of your screen. Click on that, submit your questions, and then probably in about 5 minutes, we're gonna be starting answering most of your questions. All right, this is the extension menu. This is where you can see all your extensions. Let me just lower the size a little bit. You can see, the extension status, if they are registered or not, what's the extension number. You can edit it. You can send the information to an email. And most important, the zero config. So if you ever have a Grandstream phone in the same network, then the phones are going to be automatically popping up here. I believe zero config is coming. Bear with us. Okay. So I don't have any phone connected, unfortunately, but typically the phones are going to start showing up right here at the bottom. And then you basically click on edit, assign the extension, and the phone get provision. All right, we're getting more questions through the Q&A. Please keep submitting your questions and we're gonna be answering them in a brief moment. Going back to the extension menus, this is where you configure your trunks. I have 2 trunks configured, analog trunks, and for VoIP trunk or SIP trunks, I have 1, 2, 3 trunks configured. So remember, you can configure up to 50 SIP trunks. If you have SIP trunk provider, you can have up to 50 SIP trunks providers. Not that many providers you can use, but typically with 1 or 2 should be enough. This is where you have all the call features, conference, bridges, for example, automatically when you configure a conference, go to edit, and from the conference bridge, the bridge number is, by the way, 6300. So by dialing into the UCM, you can simply dial 6300 and then your call is into the bridge right away. You have different menus, options. For example, make the bridge private, meaning that you need to enter an admin password. So the host can be only the only person joining first the conference bridge. And then you can provide or create passwords for the attendees. You can make the conference room in a quiet mode. Typically when you join the conference bridge, there's gonna be some beeps, so you know that someone joined, and there's a different tones for when people are leaving. So in short, what I'm saying is that the conference bridges are available for you, and there's many options that you can configure. We added not recently a Google service settings. So basically you can create your conference schedules, okay? For example, let me schedule my sales meetings every Wednesday at 4 p.m., for example. If you configure your Google services, which I don't have anything configured at the moment, so typically you go to Google, there's some instructions at the bottom that you need to follow. You need to get the authorization code, you enter it here, and then the UCM will synchronize with your Google Calendar. So any conferences that you schedule will be automatically pushed to your Google Calendars or Google services. So then the reminders and the emails are going to be working around that conference timing or schedule. And a typical, ring groups, for example, this is a nice way that you can add or create a ring group in a couple clicks. Simply enter a ring group name, then you assign a few extensions, you move them to the right, and then at the bottom you have different strategies. How do you want this extension to ring? Simultaneously or in order, okay? You can also provide a music on hold on to the user that is calling. You can have a no music on hold, so simply ring back. Okay, you can provide a specifically music on hold. Typically, people upload a prompt saying, wait a moment until a new agent is available, something like that. And many other options. So the auto record, for example, when you turn this option on, that means that everything going through the ring group will be recorded. All right, so that was a little bit to show you some of the typical menus that you need to. I just want you to get familiar with the UCM. It's 41 minutes past the hour, so we're gonna start with the Q&A. So again, please submit your questions. Probably Joe from VoIP Supply is gonna help us to read the questions, and I'm gonna do my best to answer most of them. If we don't have time to answer all the questions, there's going to be a follow-up email. Again, we're going to do our best to answer most of your questions via email. And typical questions that we normally receive are, one is about the webinar recording. If this webinar is being recorded, yes, it is recorded and also will be provided in the follow-up email. Another question typically we receive is about the presentation that I just showed you. If that one can be available, also yes, it can be available. We will be including the presentation deck on the follow-up email. All right, Joey, are you ready? Can you give us help us reading some of the questions?
Yeah, here's the first one here. Says, what is your opinion on using a phone as an intercom and paging device compared to using an intercom device?
A phone, I mean, they're referring to a Grandstream phone, right? So if that is the case, as a paging, by the way, all the Grandstream phones, they had a paging or intercom capability. So obviously, depending on the case, if you just want to page someone or intercom someone, and the audio that the phone is providing, remember, when the phone receives a paging call, it will go off hook and connect the audio to the speaker. So if that audio gain or volume is enough, then you go for it. The phones are designed for that purpose. However, if you need a PA system where you need a more robust speaker, an amplified speaker, then definitely you need to either utilize a Grandstream ATA, so then you can connect your PA system into the ATA FXS board, or today there's so many people selling or making VoIP or SIP embedded PA system. Check there's so many vendors doing this type of equipment today. But yeah, you can use the Grandstream phone for that purpose too.
Okay. All right, we'll go move right along here. It says, can a user record an IVR message or a recording using feature codes?
Good question. So currently, no, but guess what? It's in a roadmap. So basically, we noticed that there's a lot of requests towards this particular feature. The way that you can do it now is you need to access the web interface, and then you can upload the recordings. Yeah, so to make it short, yeah, it will be supported soon.
Okay. All right. Next one here. We would like to know more about CRM integration with Zoho, Salesforce, etc., as well as Grandstream Affinity. CRM
Perfect.
integration.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, so basically the UCM is a CRM compatible, not only with CRMs like Zoho, Sugar CRM, Salesforce, but also is compatible. It comes with a PMS module. Again, everything's included with the unit. You don't need to purchase anything, any accessories. The UCM is ready for that. If you want to know a little more information about how to configure it, by the way, I can just show you quickly. To configure it is super easy, but you need to have some specific information about your CRMs. So we are currently compatible with Sugar CRM, vTiger, Soho, and Salesforce. So whatever you choose, you basically need to enter the type of inquiry methods that we support. And here's another menu where you're supposed to enter the IP address of your server. Okay, so we don't have that from this. This is the latest firmware, by the way. If you see some option that you don't have in your typical PBX, I have an internal firmware that will be available soon. So these are the Salesforce available for PMS or integration with PMS. We are currently compatible with a couple of middlewares, H Mobile, for example, Mitel, and HSE. So if you have a customer in the hotel industry, you just check what software they're using, and you need to make sure that their software is compatible with one of these three middlewares. So the RUCM cannot be compatible with the hundreds of thousands of softwares, hotel softwares available in the market. But the way that the system is working is that they make a middleware that is compatible with these many softwares and at the same time is compatible with many PBX vendors. So we, in our case, are compatible with these three middlewares. Any other questions, Joe?
Okay. Yep. Got a couple more here. Do conferences need to be created ahead of time? And is there a limit on the total number of conferences?
So you can schedule your conferences. You can do an ad hoc conference as well. So you can create your conference room, like this one, for example, conference room 6300. So it's up to you how to notify people to join, right, to this conference room. However, you can also schedule the conferences. So when you create a schedule, you need to enter multiple SIP extensions, then obviously the scheduled start time and end time. And then when the start time happens, then the USIM is going to call these individual extensions and bridge them into the conference room automatically. You can have up to 3 simultaneous, I'm sorry, you can create 3 to 6 conference rooms, but you can have from 25 to 32 participants at the same simultaneous participants. And this is the menu where you can download the conference recordings. Right? Any other question?
Yep, I do got another. I have another one here. Can the UCM be used to auto dial, robo dial for us to send notifications to our clients?
Yeah, that's a good one. Not really, but we do have an option that we call it announcement center. Basically, you create a prompt, you create a code, and then you can even create a group number. And in that group number, you can have multiple extensions. So what I'm saying is, no, to answer the question, we don't have a robot auto dialer that you can dial many numbers outside through the PSTN. What we do have is the announcement center that you can pre-configure a recording and then push that recording to many extensions by just simply dialing a string through any phone. So again, a typical example is check your voicemail, for example, message. So you can push that indication, that prompt or that recording to many of your employees. And then when you hit the code by using any phone, the USIM is going to start sending that recording to the selected extensions. Then when they pick up, they're going to hear the pre-recorded message. That's a short example.
Okay. Next one here. Can I use remote phones? Can I use remote phones office in 2 cities and be on the same network?
Yes, definitely. You need to have the PBX or the UCM available from outside, meaning that you need to do some network changes. For example, port forwarding, depending on the case, right? Again, we don't recommend having the PBX connected right in the border. But there might be cases where you need to do that, or you may have a firewall that is behind the UCM. In any case, if you make that UCM reachable from outside, keep an eye security, right? Make sure that you are not using the default port. You need to change port to another number. And then yes, remote extensions can basically register to your local PBX and make and receive calls.
Okay. Another one here. Can the UCM record all incoming calls and outgoing calls, and how long will it hold the recording?
Okay, so yes, the call recording is included. Again, it's not a module, it's not an accessory that you need to purchase. It simply comes embedded with the software. You enable that option per extension level, per trunk level, or even per call queue or ring group. When you turn that option on, everything will be recorded that is going through that particular element. And then the recordings are going to be stored in either way, in locally in the UCM local flash, or there's a setting that you can say, all my recordings, send it to the USB port where you may have more space. Let me see if I can find quickly that setting. Uh, well, in the meantime, we can go to the next question, Joe.
Okay. This one says, I have an old UCM 6104. Would I be able to upgrade that to utilize the asterisk 13?
Oh, good question. Before answering that, this is the menu where you can, unfortunately, I don't have a USB memory stick connected to it, but if I do, then it will show up here. So this is where you can tell the PBX where to storage your recordings, either locally like it's now, or in your USB, or maybe an SD card, depending what you have connected. Going back to the next question, if you have a UCM 6100 series, remember, all of them, they share the same firmware, meaning 6100 or a 6200. So if you have a 6100, make sure that you have the latest firmware. As of today, we announced a new firmware a couple of weeks ago. So the latest firmware as of today is 16.20. So as you can see, even the 6100 series, you have the same firmware. So same firmware means same call features.
Yes. Let's see here. Can the music on hold be connected to a remote audio stream?
So the UCM doesn't have a physical line input. However, any Grandstream phone is going to sound funny because the phone itself, it does support what we call music on hold URI. So yes, if you hire services with companies that are providing this type of service, like Pandora, for example, if I remember correctly, then you can enter the URI into your phone. And then when you press the hold button, the phone is going to go after that URI, is going to download the music or the RTP and play it back to the caller. That feature is not supported on the PBX, however. So if you want to go that route, you need to enable that feature on the phone itself.
Okay. Can an M3U web stream be used in the UCM in place of an uploaded MP3 for music on hold?
What was the first format? He said M3U.
M3U is what came through on the question. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, I don't think that's a good format. I may be wrong, but yes, we support many formats. Let me show you quickly. If you upload, sorry, yes, custom prompt. We changed the web interface. Typically, we were including all the formats supported. Let me try one more time. Yeah, probably we make some changes to the web interface, but typically we were including in this message all the formats available. So basically, you are supposed to upload, messages or audios in different formats from MP3, WAV, ULAW, ALAW, GSM, ARAW, um, and multiple formats and many formats more. So they can be uploaded, and then the UCM will be only converting those files into WAV format. We're working on converting those files into MP3 to save in space, but that it's in our roadmap.
Okay. And then just one last follow-up on that. Looks like they'd like to stream the local radio station using a web link.
Okay. Yeah. Again,
That
yeah, that's a good question. Typically, I don't know what is the URI format. Again, there are service providers doing this. Check on Pandora. That's one of them that they provide this type of services. I don't know. Obviously, it needs to be a specific format, so I don't have the answer of what type of URI is needed. Again, this is on the phone side. I think I don't have a phone with me that I can show you, but that's a good question that you can submit through Grandstream support. You can go to grandstream.com, go to help desk option, and submit that question to see if we can find out specifically what type of URI is needed. Okay.
okay. Another one here. Does Grandstream wave tunnel securely to the UCM if being used remotely, or do I need to port forward or use an SBC for security?
Yeah,
Grandstream
as
wave tunnel
any
securely.
right, as any remote phone that you want to bring into your PBX, we highly recommend using or enabling all the security protocols available. So if it's a soft phone or if it's a Grandstream phone, yes, the Grandstream phone, for example, they have a VPN client. So then you can enable a VPN in the UCM side, and then you send the Grandstream phone to the remote location, pre-configured with the VPN credentials. So then it's going to be tunneled from the Grandstream phone to the unit, to the PBX. If you want to use a soft phone, not only the Grandstream Wave, then you also need to do the same on your cell phone. You need to download a VPN tunnel and then connect into the UCM's VPN. The VPN per se supports OpenVPN. And let me see if we added more VPNs protocols. VPN, yeah, we have OpenVPN only. And this is where you configure your VPN. My bad. So let me rephrase that. So OpenVPN on the UCM is a OpenVPN client. So that you need to have a server. If you want to send remote phones, then you need to set up your own OpenVPN server on the UCM's prem. So then these remote phones can connect to the OpenVPN server. Okay.
Okay, I think we got time for one more here. Just a real quick one. Can there be different ringtones for internal and external calls, and how?
Absolutely. This is supported. There are many ways to accomplish this from the phone's end or side of it. You go to the phone and then you can create um, how do you call it? It's like there's an option that you can uh, have multiple ringtones depending on the caller ID. So on the phone side, you can enter the caller ID's pattern. You know, if it's a 4-digit number, then we can assume that it's an internal extension. So, and then you can select a ringtone. And then for other type of numbers, like a 10-digit number, for example, that then you can provide a specific ringtone. That's on the phone side. However, from the PBX side, then you can also do it from the call routing. So incoming, when you create your incoming route, this is an incoming route that right here, you have the alert info. So depending on the caller ID, not caller ID, well, this is the call route for a analog trunk. Then this is where you can select anything incoming from this particular trunk. I want my phones to ring distinctively. So then you have, for Grandstream phones, by the way, we use Bellcore DR1 all the way to DR5. If you have third-party phones, then you can use the rings, the ring 1 through 10, I think. Okay. All right, I think we're on top of the hour. I don't know, Joe, if we have more questions, but again, if we have more questions, then I'm going to do my best to answer them in a follow-up email. What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, I think that's about it. I think we covered just about everything on here. If anybody does have more questions that weren't answered, you can feel free to send them to me at my email there that was on earlier in the presentation, jshanahan@voipsupply.com. We will be sending out the recording of this webinar to everyone, so you'll have it. But if there's other questions, you can call me here at VoIP Supply. There's my contact info there on the screen now, my email and my phone number, direct line. So yeah, please reach out and we'll help you any way that we can. And thanks again for everyone for coming and joining us here today. And Ernesto, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Joe. Thank you everyone for joining. And please keep checking our website for more upcoming trainings and webinars. We're going to be doing in-site or in-person trainings, most likely near a city near you, and webinars through VoIP Supply. So keep checking VoIP Supply website for more webinars coming very soon. Thank you very much for joining. Have a good day.